You're about to hear a compilation of true horror stories from Reddit. For the best experience, use headphones. Ethan adjusted his backpack, glancing back nervously at the group of chattering students behind him. His heart sank as they trudged deeper into Blackwood Forest. Memories of his father's disappearance in this very forest haunted him. He was swallowed up by the trees 6 years ago and never returned. Ethan had vowed never to step foot there again, yet here he was, forced by a school trip he couldn't avoid. Chloe marched beside him, her cautious steps contrasting sharply with Ethan's determined stride. Chloe had always been a planner, someone who hated the dark because it represented the unknown. She thrived in the light of the library, not under the oppressive canopy of ancient pines. Ms. Rivera led the charge, her eyes flickering with worry. She was a caring teacher, but grief for her lost daughter constantly gnawed at her. She tried to keep everyone safe, but something malevolent in this forest seemed intent on thwarting her. The dense arrangement of towering trees, branches interlocking like the gnarled fingers of an old witch, cast a pall over the trail. The air was thick, a sickly sweet blend of pine and decay. Fallen leaves crunched underfoot, the only sound in an otherwise eerie silence, occasionally punctuated by unseen creatures rustling in the underbrush. "Ethan," Chloe whispered, her voice quivering, "I don't like this. Something feels off." Ethan felt it too, the sinister sign of trouble they first encountered. A trail marker painted in fresh blood kept replaying in his mind. They pressed on, students exchanging worried glances and nervous laughter. A sense of foreboding hovered over them like a thick mist. Deeper into the forest, the group stumbled upon disturbing signs. Old campfires still smoldered, their embers glowing ominously. Strange symbols were carved into the trees, their meanings lost but their intent clear, warning or curse. Ethan couldn't tell. Animal carcasses lay arranged in ritualistic patterns, their sight and stench driving a new wave of unease through the students. "Amsash, Rivera? What's going on?" One of the students piped up, but Ms. Rivera's lips had formed a tight line, her usual warmth replaced by cold determination. She remembered the stories just as well as Ethan did. The spirits of those wronged by a settler massacre centuries ago roamed this forest, manipulating its very essence to ensnare the living. As the hours dragged on, the forest seemed to come alive, shadows morphing into figures that disappeared the moment one turned to look. Ethan's heart pounded harder with each step, fueled by stark fear and grim determination. He refused to end up like his father, a mystery swallowed by the woods. In the growing darkness, Chloe clung to Ethan, her fear of the night intensified by the malice that lurked in every shadow. "Ethan, I can't do this. I can't see anything. We have to keep moving," Ethan urged her, his voice steely. "We can't stay here." Branches cracked ominously overhead, and the rustling of unseen forces grew louder, echoing the growing paranoia among the students. Ms. Rivera rallied them, pushing them forward, but the devious traps of the forest ensnared them deeper into its malevolent heart. The tension broke in one horrifying moment when one of the students stepped wrong and fell into a concealed pit, his scream piercing the silence before being choked out by the forest floor. Panic ensued, students scattering momentarily before being corralled by Ms. Rivera's fierce cries. The forest had claimed its first victim. "Stay together," Ms. Rivera shouted, but her own fear was palpable. In her eyes, Ethan saw his own dread reflected. The forest didn't just claim the lost, it devoured their very essence. Desperation fueled Ethan and Chloe as they fought through denser thickets, hurrying towards a clearing where the faint moonlight made the forest slightly less oppressive. Ethan spotted a familiar sight. The historic settler's grave, the place his father had vowed to explore last. The truth struck Ethan like a bolt of lightning. The curse of the spirits tied them to this land, their restless souls drawing tormentors like trapped flies to sugar. Chloe tugged on his arm, eyes wild. "Ethan, what's happening? Why did your dad come here?" Ethan's face tightened with anguish as he traced the symbols on the grave. symbols ingrained in his memory from examining his father's old journal. To uncover the truth, he replied darkly, and he was taken for it. What do we do now? We confront them. We expose the truth. The two delved into the site, unearthing remnants of the past with desperate urgency. They discovered a crude diary detailing the settler massacre, the gruesome account of betrayal and bloodshed that birthed the curse. The spirits, raging against the injustice, were now the forest's cruel guardians. Ethan and Chloe performed a hastily pieced-together ritual, appealing to the spirits' anguish and offering apologies for the sins of their ancestors. As they chanted the ancient words, the forest began to pulse ominously, breaths becoming labored amid the oppressive atmosphere. The climax came with an infernal zenith. The forest exploded in furious activity as the spirits unleashed their wrath before gradually retracting, their forms dissipating. The students could feel the forest's grip loosening, the malevolence retreating. The curse was appeased, and just on the edge, they could see the broken figure of Ethan's father fading into peace. Miss Rivera gathered the surviving students, an echo of the past haunting her steps, but replaced with newfound strength and purpose. Ethan clenched his fists as they escaped the forest, its sinister roots losing their chokehold. The moonlight emerged brighter on the other side as they broke free, but the forest stood ever watchful. Ethan had his closure. Chloe had overcome her fear. And Ms. Rivera knew she had to live on for her lost daughter. As they left the dark recesses of Blackwood Forest, an uneasy silence hung in the air. The downed trees and broken symbols marked their path of struggle and survival. The forest might stand silent now, but it would remember. It always remembered. James had always scoffed at the idea of ghosts and paranormal activities, dismissing them as nothing more than hokum to entertain the gullible. His belief wavered, however, on that fateful day when the once majestic, now decrepit, Redwood High School welcomed him and his classmates for a mandatory historical expedition. The oppressive architecture of Gothic spires and shadow-cloaked hallways set an unnerving stage, whispering secrets to those who dared to listen. Accompanying James was Maya, his supportive friend. Though a beacon of warmth in his skeptical world, Maya carried with her a suffocating burden, a past imbued with ghostly encounters that had shattered her once unshakable sense of security. Their chaperone was Coach Davis, a stoic figure whose gruff exterior masked a history steeped in spectral confrontations. The school's eerie stillness was consistently punctuated by the distant, phantom-like echoes of disembodied footsteps, a metronome of dread as the two ventured deeper into the bowels of Redwood High. The walls were adorned with spectral portraits, each pair of eyes following their every move with a soulless gaze. Maya squeezed James's arm, her anxiety a palpable presence against the cold stone walls. "Did you see that?" James muttered, half hoping his whispered words would dispel the creeping dread skittering up his spine. Maya's eyes reflected a terror that surpassed any of James's doubt. She had seen far too much to dismiss it. "It's happening again." Coach Davis, sensing the growing unease, barked orders, hoping to dispel the encroaching shadows with the commanding resonance of his voice. But each word seemed to shatter upon impact, unable to pierce the malevolent darkness. "Stick together, no wandering off." It was an echo chamber of fears, Maya's apprehensions, James' disintegrating skepticism, and Coach Davis' tight-lipped vigilance. The shadows grew bolder with each passing moment, coiling and uncoiling as if taunting their presence. The students stumbled upon a neglected archive, its shelves creaking under the weight of aged texts and dust-covered records. James pulled an old newspaper clipping, yellowed and brittle. The headline read, "Redwood High Mystery. Students vanish without a trace." Maya's voice quivered. "Look at the date. These disappearances, they coincide with the school's last renovation." Coach Davis's eyes darkened, haunted by memories. That was no renovation. It was a cover-up for what they found beneath the old gymnasium. Shadows twisted and contorted, mold growing thicker upon the walls, creeping like a plague as pieces of Redwood's sordid history became unveiled. Echoes of tormented pasts assailed them from every corner. James's breath was a ragged whisper. What do they want? Revenge, Coach Davis muttered grimly, the weight of guilt bearing upon his shoulders. They want revenge for what was done to them. Always shifted into mazes, old brick and mortar transforming and warping in the presence of the unhappy spirits. Each step was laden with surreal terror, made worse by the sudden, abrupt whispers echoing through hollow walls. Maya's fingers brushed against something cold and slimy. Phantoms. Remnants of the atrocities committed within these forgotten corridors. A thunderous crescendo of phantom footsteps culminated as they reached the old auditorium. There, a vortex of darkness coalesced into the form of a leader. A towering shadow, its eyes aglow with malevolent light. "Why have you come?" it hissed, voice a distortion of many. Coach Davis's voice faltered. "We've come to put things right, to end the pain." "You lie," the shadow spat, creeping closer, a palpable hatred radiating. "You were part of it." The truth dropped onto James and Maya like an anchor. Coach Davis, their protector, was linked to the horrors that had befallen those lost spirits. "It wasn't supposed to happen that way," Davis confessed. "I didn't know what they were planning." A cacophony of spectral voices filled the auditorium, a chorus of the damned. Deep within the eye of this supernatural storm, James realized their only chance at survival lay within uncovering the truth and helping the spirits find peace. "Tell us what happened," pleaded James. "Give us your story." The spirits seethed, flickering like dying embers. The leader, an ethereal figure of an old student named Emma, began recounting the tale, a twisted performance enacted to the backdrop of their fates. Visions of cruelty, of secret torture rooms, and sadistic rituals implemented by the school's administration to expel defiance. Souls entangled and trapped in an eternal wail of agony. Maya, her tears mingling with the spectral sobs, grasped James's hand, and together they faced the final horror, freeing the spirits by exposing the truth. With Emma's guidance, they found a ledger hidden beneath the auditorium stage, documenting the malevolent actions in excruciating detail. The shadows roared, a collection of swirling torment as they gazed upon their salvation or destruction. With hesitant, trembling hands, Maya and James read aloud the ledger's contents, revealing the horrors to the world. The shadows recoiled and dissipated, finally released from Redwood High's gloomy grasp. The surviving students emerged, their spirits broken and reshaped by the night's events. Coach Davis, a figure of shattered sin and sorrow, resigned. Seeking redemption, he left, a tortured soul in search of personal penance. As James and Maya walked past Redwood High one last time, the cool night air provided no solace. Tendrils of fog twisted lazily, the school's windows flickering ominously. James turned back, a shiver running down his spine. "Do you think they're really at peace?" he asked. Maya nodded but turned away, the faintest flicker of unease still haunting her gaze. The silence was punctuated with the slightest of whispers, a last, lingering echo of the shadows. And as they walked away, the school lights bathed the ancient stone in a yawning, sinister glow before flickering into darkness once more. Darrell stood at the edge of Echo Lake, his reflection trembling in the black water. The air was thick with anticipation and unease, as if the lake itself awaited the descent of darkness to reveal its sinister secrets. He came here hoping to feel closer to his brother, whose life ended in these waters, but instead, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Dana, his ever-logical and caring girlfriend, approached him cautiously, her steps careful around the slippery rocks. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She hated the lake. The mere idea of water sent shivers down her spine, her fear growing as the shadows lengthened. "I'm fine," Daryl replied, his eyes never leaving the water. "Just thinking about Jason?" Dana wrapped her arms around him, shivering slightly, not from the cold, but from a premonition she couldn't quite shake. "Let's head back to the camp. It'll be dark soon." Principal Harris was already at the campgrounds, watching the students with an eagle eye. His stern demeanor seemed to relax only momentarily when he saw Daryl and Dana approaching. "Everything okay, Daryl?" he asked, his voice unusually gentle. Daryl nodded, but there was a spark of accusation in his eyes. "Just thinking about my brother." Harris looked away, shadows of his past playing havoc with his conscience. As night enveloped the lake, the camp took on a different character, the once lively and joyous atmosphere giving way to an eerie, stifling silence. The dense woods around them seemed to close in, and the water turned into a black mirror, reflecting nothing but the darkness. Whispers of laughter and the phantom sounds of splashing water echoed across the lake, chilling everyone to the bone. As the students gathered around the campfire, hush fell over the group. A local guide began recounting the legend of Echo Lake, a tale of children who drowned due to the negligence of a camp counselor long ago. "They say the spirits of those children haunt the lake, seeking vengeance," he finished, his voice tremulous with both fear and delight in the terror he instilled. Soon after, a student's uneasy scream pierced the night, drawing everyone's attention to the lake. Mark had vanished, leaving only ripples in the water where he once stood. Panic swept through the group. Dana clutched Daryl's arm, her heart pounding. "We need to find him." Daryl and a few brave students grabbed flashlights and searched the shoreline, but Mark was nowhere to be found. Over the next few days, the disappearance of more students spread an insidious panic among them. Each evening, as darkness fell, eerie laughter could be heard, growing louder and more mocking. Daryl was tormented by visions of his brother's face appearing in the water, his eyes pleading, lips silently mouthing, "Help me." One evening, as Daryl stared into the lake, he saw Jason again. Before he could think, he felt an overpowering urge to step into the icy water. "Daryl, no." Dana screamed, her fear of the water overtaken by her desperation to save him. She ran to him, the cold water soaking through her shoes, pulling him back with all her strength. "We need to understand," Daryl whispered, shaking and drenched. "There's something more to this place." As they pieced together the story from fragments of conversations with the locals, it became evident that Principal Harris had a role in the legends. Years ago, he had worked as a camp counselor at Echo Lake. It was during his shift that several children had drowned, their deaths shrouded in mystery and guilt. Confronted, Principal Harris broke down, his stern facade crumbling. "I tried to save them," he sobbed, "but I couldn't. I was young and foolish, not vigilant enough. Their faces haunt me every night." Realizing the spirits were not just mischievous but vengeful, and emboldened by Principal Harris's confession, Daryl devised a plan. With Dana by his side, they sought to confront the spirits directly. That night, as the wind howled and the lake writhed under an unseen force, Daryl and Dana entered the water, calling out to the lost souls. Figures began to emerge from the depths, spectral and sorrowful. Among them was Jason. Daryl's heart ached. "We're so sorry for what happened," he cried. "But this curse must end." Principal Harris, standing at the shore, trembled as he faced his past sins. "I failed you," he admitted aloud, tears streaming down his face. "It was my fault, and I've lived with that guilt every day." The spirits paused, their anguished expressions softening. Slowly, they began to dissipate, mist returning to the lake, the curses and whispers vanishing with them. Mark and the other missing students resurfaced, shivering but alive. The curse lifted, and the surviving students quickly left the lake, forever marked by the experience. Daryl, though finding some closure regarding his brother, couldn't shake the nightmares that now plagued him. Principal Harris, burdened by his guilt but seeking redemption, quietly resigned. Echo Lake returned to its serene, deceptive calm, but the memories lingered. Even from afar, on still nights, the water seemed to whisper, keeping the old legends alive. Those who lived through the horrors of Echo Lake would never forget the darkness that once held them in its grip, nor the echoes of children's laughter that chased them from the shadows.